I know there are going to be a lot of people out there that go into this video completely disagreeing with pretty much everything I'm going to say, and that is because at the end of the day, I think World of Warcraft is still a very good game at its core. I know that there have been a lot of issues concerning Blizzard, concerning Activision. I know that a lot of people dislike various different aspects of the game. They dislike various different expansions found throughout the game. But at the end of the day, again, this is something that I really enjoy. This is a game that I grew up on. I started playing MMORPGs all the way back in 2004, I think maybe 2005, and I was way too poor at the time to be able to afford World of Warcraft. This is a game that I always anticipated playing, that I always looked forward to when I was stable enough in my life, when I had a stable source of income, and I could dedicate a portion of that income to paying a monthly fee for a game. Now, I started my journey in World of Warcraft in 2008. That is approximately 13 years ago today. Now, let me tell you, I played through Wrath of the Lich King, which is the expansion that I started in. I played through the Cataclysm expansion. I played through Mists of Pandaria. I played through Warlords of Draenor. I played through Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and I just started my journey into Shadowlands. I know it's, a little bit late technically, but I was finishing up everything I needed to do in Final Fantasy XIV ahead of its Endwalker expansion that's coming later this year. I have had an active subscription in World of Warcraft for way too long. I think it has probably been about 8 years since I let that subscription lapse. And let me tell you, while there are some people that perceive that as being wasteful, the amount of times that I have come back to this game just to log in and to participate in some PvP, to go ahead and help people that I know grind through dungeons or participate in raids, or attempt to just waste some time farming mounts that I've always wanted, but was always far too unlucky to ever get. So to me, that made my $15 monthly subscription worth it. Now, admittedly, I have not played this since probably, I think, halfway through Battle for Azeroth. I never finished the Battle for Azeroth storyline because I was playing through Final Fantasy XIV with my wife, Mrs. Styx. So there have been quite a few changes made to the game since I last played. I last played at the beginning of 2020. First and foremost is the completely overhauled leveling zone. Now, when starting the game, you get to go through, I think it's the 1 through 15 experience with everyone else. There is a completely overhauled leveling experience. Before, each race would have their own unique zone that they would start off in, and admittedly, those were very dated looking. People have run through them hundreds, if not thousands of times by this point, and the entire leveling experience needed an overhaul. I will be the first to admit that I have leveled so many ults through nothing but dungeon farming that I can tell you the few times I ran through the zone stories, I was bored to tears. So this new leveling zone, and not just this new leveling zone, but the entire leveling experience itself is a substantial increase in terms of enjoyment you can get. Not just enjoyment though, but also the speed with which you level. See, upon leaving the newbie zone, you are greeted with the option of time walking through any of the expansion's content you want. Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and all of them are interchangeable at any time. I personally went with the Pandarian expansion because for me, Pandaria was at a point where Cataclysm really burned me out and I was not enjoying the game, and Mists of Pandaria introduced some much needed humor into the game and some really beautiful zones. It just so happened to make the Arms Warrior incredibly powerful with Second Wind, and the Bladestorm Bloodbath combination. That was probably the best time of my life. Now you can pretty much complete the entire expansion and move all the way from level 15 through level 50 through any expansion you choose. I went through, I think it was 1 through 30 in the Mists of Pandarian expansion. After that point, I decided I was going to go ahead and try out one of the other expansions because while I have leveled through every single one of them, I wanted to see how this new leveling experience felt in these other zones. So I opted to go for Warlords of Draenor, which was a very mediocre expansion, granted, but it had some very beautiful zones, and the leveling experience there has always been so much faster than anywhere else because you had the ability to do those bonus objectives and all the treasures that were located spread it around the world, which have admittedly been very, very nerfed, because I think I spent about 10 minutes gaining treasure and got maybe like 15% of a level up, which was completely useless for me, considering I could get substantially more just by doing the quests or running a dungeon. Now, one thing I did notice about this new leveling experience was the fact that after everything was squished down, I felt significantly weaker. Now, I don't know if this is true. It just felt very true, but I have not really ever invested time into a demon hunter, but I know that they are fairly strong. I know that they have a fairly large amount of self-sustainability and survivability, but I felt so unbelievably squishy. I recall even on just my arms warrior or my fury warrior while leveling, I could take on 10, I could take on 20 monsters simultaneously and AoE down everything in like 2 or 3 hits. But on the demon hunter, I attempted to gather a multitude of enemies and I just got wiped. Like, the amount of damage I took was so much higher than I had anticipated. Surviving encounters with elite monsters, with rare monsters, and surviving encounters with story-related boss monsters was very, very tough, and I enjoyed it so much more than I anticipated enjoying it. But at the same time, this could just be because maybe the Demon Hunter was nerfed or something and I didn't keep up with the buffs and nerfs of each individual class. Now, after spending several hours in Draenor leveling through the Spires of a Rock, because you get that nice 20% boost to the zone-wide XP, there are plenty of quests to do. You get those nice little rested XP items. You guys know what I'm talking about. I decided that it was time to enter Shadowlands. Again, this is an expansion that I never had the opportunity to play, so I was a little bit giddy. I admittedly could not really contain my excitement, and I'm the kind of person that prefers to level with war mode on because I like having the thrill of seeing another player and potentially getting to engage them in 1v1. And I realized after arriving in Shadowlands, pretty much everywhere is filled with PvP. The amount of leveled 60 players that I found that just popped out and 2-3 shot me while attempting to level was almost more than I could handle. I admit there were times where I just stopped for a moment and contemplated turning war mode off because I was just trying to level. I was just trying to get my quests done. But at the same time, I chose to level with war mode turned on, and I am an avid fan of PvP. Although admittedly, I'm not the kind of person that goes around and kills leveling players while they're just trying to do their quests. I'm the kind of guy that sees a level 60 player or a max level player and then it goes out and starts engaging them in 1v1, because I mean, if you have it on and I have it on, then obviously we are both prepared for that encounter. And I saw that there were plenty of max level horde characters out killing the lower level alliance leveling characters, and there were tons of alliance characters that were coming to the aid of those lower level players, and I appreciate everyone that is doing that. And you know what? I am actually very happy that this is going on because the PvP community right now is very healthy. I have not played an MMORPG in recent memory that had a active PvP player base, so seeing all of this taking place is just something that I really didn't expect to be able to experience again. But it was not just that. I got attacked by other players that were within a couple levels of me as well. There were instances where hunters would come out and attempt to burst me down while I was completing a quest, while I was grouping together multiple different monsters. Admittedly, I did die on occasion, but at the same time, I won my fair share of fights as well. Although at one point, there was one hunter in specific. This guy was going around and he was attacking people when they were attempting to turn in their quests. He'd hide and then he would come out and try and burst them down. Now, while he did do that to me at one point, I was definitely caught unawares like everyone else in that area. I decided I was going to go ahead and come back and I was going to attack him preemptively. And I did, and I killed him, I think 6 or 7 different times over a 10-12 minute period. And then suddenly out of nowhere, his body disappears. And then about 2 minutes later, you know what happens? A max level druid comes out of nowhere and starts attacking me. So I managed to run, I managed to escape and get away. And then about a couple minutes later, the hunter just reappears and starts killing people in the same spot. So I go ahead, I kill them a few more times, and then they leave. Now, fast forward half an hour later, I am doing some quests in an area that was a little bit after the area that I was in, and this hunter is there again, and he's killing people again in the same way. So I go ahead here, I attack him several more times, and then you know what happens? The same max level druid decides to come out of nowhere and attack me after the hunter disappears. Coincidence? I've played enough PvP MMOs, I've played enough PvP games, I've played enough of World of Warcraft to know that if a character gets killed a few times, they bring their max level tunes. This is just what happens. But I mean, if you don't want to get killed, then don't attack people. It's really that simple, man. But this was just so much fun for me. I have not had this much fun participating in PvP in a very long time, and seeing every zone just filled with people fighting one another, Horde and Alliance, pretty much everywhere, was essentially a dream come true for someone that enjoys PvP as much as I do. But outside of the PvP, the Shadowlands experience, granted, I've only, as of recording this video, made it to about level 56, level 57. I plan on doing a more updated Shadowlands look somewhere down in the future, but my experience thus far has been that I am very impressed. There is a lot of story. There are a lot of cutscenes in this expansion. This feels very different to Warlords of Draenor. This feels very different to Legion. This feels kind of more similar to Battle for Azeroth. I feel like Battle for Azeroth had more story in it than Legion and Warlords of Draenor did. But at the same time, I know a lot of people had an issue with Battle for Azeroth's story. I know that Shadowlands' story was probably better received than Battle for Azeroth's, and I can say that from what I have seen and what I've experienced, the narrative is probably handled better. The zones in Shadowlands itself are absolutely gorgeous. I was very surprised when I went into Battle for Azeroth because I did not expect to see such large open areas as detailed and filled as they were. And I am shocked to see that in Shadowlands, the zones are equally as large, equally as open and filled and beautiful, but at the same time, they just look so drastically different to the zones that were present in Battle for Azeroth. I know a lot of people look at World of Warcraft and they just see this old, dated, crappy looking MMO, but I've been playing it ever since it looked old and crappy, but when it was old and crappy, it was relevant and looked great. Back when Howling Fjord and the Grizzly Hills were generally considered to be some of the most beautiful zones in an MMO anywhere, and the game has just gotten better looking from there. Not just better looking, but the game itself plays so well. World of Warcraft is incredibly well optimized. The gameplay, the combat in World of Warcraft is some of the best tab target combat you will find in an MMORPG. People might hate this game, people might hate the graphical style that this game utilizes, people might hate the developer, they might hate Activision or Blizzard, they might hate everything about the game, but you cannot deny that World of Warcraft's combat is one of the best combat systems present in the genre. This game is incredibly smooth. This game is incredibly fluid. The global cooldown isn't punishing. Your abilities look great, but they don't look overly flashy like in Black Desert Online. The game just looks and feels very polished, and it's something you don't really find in other tab target MMOs. I mean, Ion, Arcade, Final Fantasy XIV, they might have great combat depending on who you ask, but at the end of the day, there's just really no competing with WoWs. Now, there is a lot to do in this game. For real. Dailies, open world quests, dungeons, heroic, mythic dungeons, mythic plus dungeons, LFR, heroic raids, mythic raids, battlegrounds, arenas, running through old raids to acquire all of the outfits that you want for transmog, mount farming, earning money. Well, I mean, you know, the fastest way to actually earn money in World of Warcraft is through the selling of a WoW token, which probably goes for about 140, 150,000 gold. And I'm not saying that's how I accumulated my 700,000 gold on my character, but it definitely definitely is how I went about acquiring my 700,000 gold on my character. Now, Mrs. Sticks and I have always been very avid fans of dungeons and raids. I would like to note that the dungeons, or at least the very first dungeon I did, our tank and everyone else for that matter took such an exorbitant amount of damage that either our monk healer was doing an absolutely atrocious job at healing, or the amount of damage that we take is so substantially higher than pretty much at any other point in the game's history that I felt like I was essentially playing a mage, even though I had defensives I could pop, even though I had my metamorphosis active. But I mean, I don't know what to say. This game has gotten so much more difficult, or at least it feels so much more difficult on a demon hunter than when I had played the game previously on a warrior or as a paladin or a DK. Now that could granted be due to the fact that I wore plate armor, but I feel like the armor that you wore was never real. Well, actually, I guess it could come down to the fact that we don't necessarily have heirloom gear on, right? Because they nerfed heirloom gear, so it no longer gives you increased XP. So because of that, I feel like, I don't know, the game, it just feels more difficult to me lately. And again, that could just be me. I guess some of you guys are gonna have to give me your feedback with regards to that in the comments below, because I don't know if I'm just playing Demon Hunter incorrectly. I don't know if our monk healer that healed us during that dungeon just wasn't really healing, but man, we take so much damage in this game now. Now, there is just so much I can say about World of Warcraft. Seriously, I have so much history in this game, 13 years. I have bore witness to so many changes for classes, for the world itself, design direction, developers coming, developers going. But at the end of the day, you guys are curious whether World of Warcraft is worth playing right now in 2021. Now, if you're looking for a cheap game, then no, this game is going to require you pay a $15 monthly fee every single month, along with the base game and the expansion and every subsequent expansion to come. So this is not a cheap game. This game is not for everyone. Granted, it is still the most active MMO out there right now, having millions of active subscribers split between both WoW Classic and the current live servers. If you're looking for a game that has a large world to explore with a plethora of content to make your way through, then yeah, this is a game that offers you a lot of things to do. If a boring endgame is something that concerns you, then you're not really going to have that experience in World of Warcraft. WoW here has so much to do at endgame that you'll often find yourself sitting there wondering what you should actually do based off of all the options you have, because you'll likely find yourself with more to do than you have time to do it in. If you're looking for an action MMO, then no, this is not what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a well-done tap target combat system, you're not going to find a combat system out there that is as good as this. If you're looking for a PvP MMO, this right here, turn war mode on, never turn it off. You'll have tons of people to fight in the open world. You'll have tons of people to fight in battlegrounds and arenas. You'll be set. Like, there is so much that this game does right, and I know that there is plenty that this game does wrong. But again, at the end of the day, you want to know if it's worth playing? The answer is yeah. World of Warcraft is still very much worth playing in 2021. There is something in this game for everyone, I guarantee you. Whether or not you can find it, whether or not that is enough to keep you actively playing is another question altogether. But this game right here is still one of the best MMORPGs that I have ever played, and is still one of the best MMOs to play right now. But this is my opinion, my impressions of World of Warcraft currently in 2021. I have not hit endgame in Shadowlands right now. I am working my way there. I know that the Azerite system was terrible in Battle for Azeroth. I know that Shadowlands does not have that system, so I am kind of looking forward to hitting endgame in Shadowlands so I can see what it has to offer. I plan on doing a follow-up video with my impressions after hitting endgame in Shadowlands and attempting to grind some of the later game content, like at the very least heroic raids, maybe mythic raids if I can find someone willing to carry me. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be worth it.